Come on, man. Let me have fucking chicken.
Good afternoon and welcome back to My Harlem Portraits, the show that wants to shed a light on the fundamental contribution of African Americans to the building of this country and on Black excellence. Today, we are going to talk about Black excellence and African Americans in the Tribeca Film Festival, which is just finished. And I will be doing a few of my interviews about Tribeca and with directors from Tribeca. We have today Josh Leong, who is a director of a live action narrative short presented in competition at the Tribeca Film Festival 2022. The title is Chicken. Is inspired by true stories of real children, mostly Black and brown, he met while volunteering in New York City juvenile detention centers in the summer of 2021, sorry. Welcome, Josh, to My Harlem Portraits.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You are an Asian American writer, director, and producer for the NYU Tisch School of the Arts, and you were awarded by President Obama. Tell us why.
I think when I was younger, I started off doing just some films, and one of my first shorts was went to the White House Student Film Festival, and so it's just kind of sparked a passion for kind of film as I've grown up. And so I would say that kind of moment and that validation kind of propelled me forward to continue studying this, and it's brought me to New York, and it's brought me to NYU. And hopefully it opens my eyes to just stories around me. And that's kind of what drew me to this project in the first place, just given I was already in New York.
How old were you when you got this award by President Obama?
Oh man, I was probably 16 or like 15, 16. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. And you won the Scholastic American Vision Awards, right?
Yes.
And you graduated from NYU Tisch in 2021. So you are a freshly graduated.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's incredible you're already at Tribeca, but you have also won the One to Watch Award at the 2020 Asian American International Film Festival. And you have an upcoming feature called Lost Boy. Tell us a little bit about this.
Absolutely. So Lost Boys is actually based on a short film that I did in 2019 in Ethiopia. That was based on a 17-year-old boy that I had met in the country in a government orphanage, and he's about to graduate his orphanage and live on the streets. That short film, you can stream that on Peacock. It stars Ethan Harisi from Netflix's When They See Us, and we're making that into a feature to go back to Ethiopia and raise awareness for the orphan crisis over there.
What made you choose, because I've seen few of your movies, that you are really focused on the African-American experience and the Black experience. What is pushing you to do that?
I think, it's not that I gravitate necessarily towards Black stories, but I think it's that when I'm put in these situations, I want as a filmmaker to reflect the world around me. And so I've had the privilege of really just kind of being able to be in these spaces, whether it's serving on mission trips in Ethiopia or the Philippines, the Dominican Republic, or in this case, for Chicken, volunteering in a Bronx juvenile detention center. Your eyes are just really open to a lot of the injustice that you see kind of in this country and in this world. And a lot of that inherently disproportionately affects Black and brown communities. And so I don't think, I'm a filmmaker that tries to tell stories of color necessarily, but I'm a filmmaker that wants to reflect important issues of this time. And at this point in time, it happens to be a lot of these kinds of stories. And I think as filmmakers, we just want to have our ear to the ground, to be listeners. I'm not pretending to be an expert about the Black experience or kind of any of these kinds of stories, but I want to be open to just seeing these stories and telling them as they are, to incorporate the communities that we are working with, to work within the Bronx and Brooklyn, to identify the partners that are really doing work and impact in these spaces, and be able to come together and tell a story along with them that hopefully these communities can be proud of. And at the end of the day, I think that's why we make films, so that we can kind of impact the world and shine a light on voices that are typically marginalized and typically hidden, and untold stories that we have at our own backyard, even in New York.
That is exactly what I thought that you were doing. It's fantastic. It's the same exact reason why I'm doing this show, because I can't stand injustices. And as you said, in this country, injustices are mainly in towards the Black and brown community, unfortunately, or let's say that those communities are more affected than others.
Sure.
And those are the communities who build the country. This is what is the craziest part of all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have screened at 6 Academy Awards qualifying festivals and in 11 countries across the world. And you have directed the Webby Award-winning short, The Other Side, starring Ethan Harris, from Ava DuVernay Emmy-winning Netflix series, When They See Us, as you mentioned before. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
That one was the film that kind of lit my fuse in terms of kind of becoming a filmmaker. I think that's where we saw that, hey, our films can have an impact. That's based on another true story of a real boy that I am very lucky enough to kind of stay in touch with over the years. But in Ethiopia right now, there's an orphan crisis, and 5% of the entire country is orphaned. And so we were telling a story of one boy, which just happened to be one of 5 million stories in Ethiopia. And through that film, we were able to raise $50,000 in COVID-19 aid for orphan communities in Ethiopia. We were able to kind of be played at galas, run fundraisers, 5Ks. And so I think that film essentially taught me that, hey, film actually can have an impact. There is merit in kind of creating art that can illuminate something on the other side of the world. Most people don't even know where Ethiopia is on a map. And I can kind of bring people into an experience of something that I was so lucky to kind of see, but really to share these children's stories, the ones that don't get a voice, the ones that, deserve to be seen. And so we try to do that across all the work that I create, whether it's in Ethiopia or it's in New York. And it's the same principle. We still have to be listeners. We still have to be reflecting the world around us. But that film in Ethiopia is the one I'm very excited for. That's the one we're turning into a feature-length film. There's a much bigger story there with that boy and that country and that crisis. And so we're really excited to continue telling these stories into the future.
And it is a very complicated story also, very intricate, between Ethiopia, Eritrea, and the different tribes and the different ethnies. I know a little bit about it because I'm Italian, so we learn.
Yep.
Yes, exactly. So that's gonna be really, really interesting to see. Currently, you are working with impact BIPOC prison communities, and recently paroled children in the Bronx and in Brooklyn. Tell us what the film is about and where it took place.
So this film takes place in a juvenile detention center in the Bronx. And it's really follows the life of these 16-year-old boys. In these prisons, they're kids 18 and under. And when I first visited, it was the week preceding Father's Day. And we noticed that a lot of the boys were getting really, really emotional about Father's Day. And if you talk to them, you realize that many of them are fathers themselves. They have kids outside of the prison. They have kids on their own. And many believe that they are just programmed to repeat the actions of abusive fathers, of absent fathers, and that they're just stuck in this cycle. They come from many broken families and often feel very frustrated and stuck. But there is this program inside the facilities where they learn how to raise baby chickens. And the act is actually supposed to teach gentling and responsibility. But we began to see that it also had a second effect. A lot of these kids were getting really emotionally attached to these chicks. And I just observed that they were treating them like surrogate children. And so all of a sudden, Chicken actually became more of a film about fatherhood. about these kids learning to become fathers, these kids learning that their past isn't over yet. And that's the message that we want to kind of show to these kids at the end of the day, that their story is not over yet. You can't judge somebody by what they did when they were 16, because we wouldn't have a functioning society like that. And so I think we really want to tell these kids that they can turn a page. We need to provide opportunities for them inside the prisons, outside the prisons. And that's where some of those partners that I mentioned, that we get to work closely with. We get to work closely with C3 Juvenile Justice Ministry. We get to work with Sprout by Design, which is the actual chick hatching program, and Minority Millennials, which really focuses on Black and Brown communities after they've kind of come out of the prison system or out of close to home facilities, just to ensure that these kids are given opportunities and empowered in education, so that they don't have to fall back into this cycle. They don't have to get stuck. We want to break the cycle of recidivism that we see so often in this country.
Which is fundamental. And what I like about your writing and so on is the fact that you call them as they are, children, because in the media in general, a 16-year-old Black boy is a man, and a 16-year-old white man is a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that needs to stop, because we need to start treating people in the same way. So this is why we're here, and this is why you're doing what you're doing, and it's fantastic. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, what are the reasons why these kids are in prison generally?
So in the real facilities, it can be anything. Some of them are in there for pretty, pretty serious crimes. There's like robbery, there's some, a lot of violent stuff. And then some of them are in there for like pretty normal, like very, very minor things. But the point is, I think the same thing in real life. When you go and volunteer in these prisons, you do not go up to the children and ask them, why are you here? That was just not something we did. And it's something that we also didn't do in the movie. So in the movie, you also don't know why any of these kids
That's
are.
why I'm asking you.
And I think that's really important, because once you know, you start to judge these children for what they did. And I think what we are trying to do is remove the element of judgment from these children, because it doesn't matter, what they did when they got here. We want to look at these kids with the unbiased light, to just see them as children. That's what they are. And so I don't want to attach a crime or attach something that they did to their life, because we all make mistakes. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I'm glad I asked this question, because that tells me how conscious you are in what you're doing with your movies. And there is a reason for not doing that, for not explaining that. And it makes a lot of sense. So thank you for that. I really like that. In the movie, you introduce this first-time actor, Jordan C. Biggs, and Bajorquez Acosta. And it's shot on location in New York City by all NYU filmmakers. They're all your schoolmates, right? So tell us about this experience. And it's produced by all New York students.
Exactly. I think it's a New York story. It's set in New York. It's a New York crew and cast. And I think that was important to us as we were kind of making this. I think we had a really, really great team spirit in making something like this. It was actually quite a feat to kind of, for example, we filmed all of this in schools. We had fantastic production designers and just kind of all kinds of crazy moving pieces as we filmed this, especially over COVID, just to produce something like this. And we had some fantastic young actors that our casting director, Sophia Hiller, was able to find all across the city. And it was really important that we found kids that were the same age, that were like kind of presenting around the same age, because they're children. And so a lot of times I actually have a lot of experience working with non-actors. It was kind of a similar situation in Ethiopia, aside from Ethan, but I think it gave a lot of this very raw performance. And I think non-actors sometimes tend to be less conscious about how they look on screen, or they're a little easier to mold. And so but the two boys, Jordan and BR, I'm just so proud of kind of how they've developed and how they've grown. And they were really, really working together. They were encouraging each other. They were really motivating each other. I think they were both very excited and hopefully got to embody a little bit of what it means to kind of be in these environments and really empathize with these children.
That they looked really, the sound, and it was really nice. I really enjoyed it. They seem like professional, so that's pretty good.
And they will be.
Sure, I'm sure after this they will be. Tell us a little bit about your this decision to volunteer with the juvenile justice ministry and going into this juvenile detention centers.
For sure. So ever since I was young in high school, I used to serve a lot with my church, actually, on missions trips. I went to the DR, I went to Ethiopia, I went to the Philippines. And so it was always really important to me to have some level of like service kind of in my life, just being able to step away from everything familiar to me and kind of go somewhere else. And so as a college student, you're kind of really stuck in this like this world in New York, especially in that area of New York. And I was also a film student, so everything I was doing was film related, and I was very sick of that. So I wanted something very different. And so when my church in New York said that they had a prison ministry program, that sounded really, really interesting, just to get up out of the area that I was in, which is a very different, affluent New York, and just kind of go to a community that I hadn't really seen before, and to kind of come in without expectations, no preconceived notions about what we're supposed to do. The servant's attitude that you walk into in these prisons are like, if all you do today is play basketball with the kids, that's all you do. If you're just there to pull chairs and just to help set up and tear down, that's great, because what's most important is that you are present for these kids and that you are there. And sometimes you'll go and they'll talk to you, and sometimes they'll go and they don't really want to talk to you at all. But it's the consistency. It's just trying to be present with these children, to show them that someone loves them, to show them that someone actually cares enough to come and talk to them, that comes weekly, or to mentor them. That's what's important, because these kids lack a lot of consistency and continuity in their life. And so even if I'm not able to be there as frequently, we really want to be supporting organizations and supporting people that can provide consistent care inside these places. What a lot of the prisons lack is kind of more structure around the interpersonal care of these children. The lack of parental figures, or the lack of kind of guiding lights, I think, is consistent ones. It makes a big difference in development, especially as a child. And so being able to support organizations and volunteer with organizations that are able to provide consistent care, that can go into the facilities day in, day out, and just spend time with the kids, is super important.
And one thing that was very striking to me is that you said residents believe they are programmed to repeat the actions of their own flawed fathers, and there is no hope for their future. How do they express that when you sit down and talk to them? These are young kids. They have their whole life in front of them, and they are already hopeless. That is terrible.
I think we got a lot of them to be a little bit more vulnerable on Father's Day, because a lot of them would talk about their fathers. Or when you ask them, hey, like, where did you grow up? A lot of them grew up with their mom, or they didn't have a father in their life, or they knew their father, but their father was locked up. And the idea was that, oh, my father was locked up, now I'm locked up, I'm stuck. Or that they weren't taught how to take care of their children. You could hear, for example, in the concern that a lot of the kids would articulate about their children. So, for example, many of them had like babies outside of the facility, and they were worrying about, are they going to grow up? Are they going to turn out just like me? I just want to be with them. I want to care for them. And that they're heartbroken because they're experiencing Father's Day and they are a father, but they don't get to be with their child. And that's a painful experience for them. And so I think a lot of them have a resentment towards their father. They sometimes don't really want to talk about their father, or are very ashamed of who their father is, or even worse, the father really isn't just a character in their life. He's just left out of the story. And I think it's a very unfortunate thing that you see among a lot of these boys that, aren't taught how to kind of be raised into kind of that kind of, with that level of like masculinity, like a lot of toxic masculinity and kind of like absence of strong male father figures in their life, kind of produces this sense of hopelessness or restlessness in the prisons.
Did you feel, sorry, did you feel that some of them regained some hopes, or I know that few months in the summer is not enough, but did you see some changes by the end of the summer when you left?
I think, frankly, I spent too little time there to really see the growth. So I don't really want to speak to that as much as I know some of my other, friends who've been able to volunteer there pretty frequently get to see. And they do get to see kids articulate that, hey, I, feel a little bit more hopeful. Or they express, for example, a passion to study something. For example, a lot of these kids lack a passion. And by the end of this program, sometimes they realize they actually like photography, or they like to make videos, or they really want to go out and own a business. And so some of our partners, for example, have entrepreneurship classes where the kids, for example, actually one of the kids I did meet, after a couple of weeks, they started a t-shirt program where they design t-shirts inside of the prison. And that's something they really like. They want to get into fashion. They want to open their own store one day. And so we have a program outside for young business owners that can come out. We'll hire, kids like that, and can kind of teach them and mentor them into doing some more of these programs. And so you also had kids in like solitary confinement that, had to be isolated, and then are now beginning to sit with other children in the auditorium or in the gymnasium, and just being able to see the progress that they're able to, they're getting trusted, they're calming down, they're more at peace, they're more willing to kind of speak with others and just kind of be ready to kind of exit that environment. And I think that's the encouragement that we see when we see that there are kids going to close to home facilities and articulating a joy for something, or articulating a desire to want to change something about their life, or to pursue a passion that they have, whether it's music or art or, rapping or photography. That's beautiful. And that's hopefully the kind of change we want to see.
That is a fantastic and hopeful ending to our interview also, because as you said, the main thing is that these kids, once they come out, they have something to look forward to.
Correct.
And they feel that they can be contributors to the society, and that will give them also the capacity and the feeling that, yeah, now I am going to be able to take care of my own kids. Because also from the economic point of view, when you come out, you have a job, instead of falling back into the old traps that you came from, then this is a new life, a new leaf, as you called it.
Correct. No, absolutely. And that's the change we want to see. I think it's really fulfilling as a filmmaker, not just to have our film viewed by people or to win awards or go into a festival, but to have people say that, hey, no, I see myself in here, or I see other children in here, and bring people into an awareness of that. And if we are able to mobilize people in this city to affect change in a facility that many of us don't even know exists, that would be worth everything.
Thank you for this interview. Thank you for this movie. And thank you for all that you are doing in your young life to give back to others. This is really, really a precious thing.
Thank you so much, Maria. I really appreciate it. It's been a real privilege to chat with you today.
Thank you to our viewers. See you next time, next Saturday, 12:30 p.m. Bye-bye.
Money trails.
on, man. Let me a fucking chicken.